Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I want to do a video about a thing like Goosebumps that I talk about constantly here on the channel because the whole channel is basically focused around that kind of thing. I have a book that's basically going to be a giant rant slash review, something like that. This book is written by a man named K.R. Alexander. It's called The Fear Zone. Look at that cover. What does that look like? It looks like the remakes of Stephen King's It, doesn't it? Yeah. I have enormous respect for people who can make middle grade horror books. I really do. R.L. Stine's one of them. Dan Pawlowski, I only read one of his books, or Pawlowski? I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his name, but I read one of the books that he wrote too recently. And it was okay. It was fine. It's hard to find a good middle ground on how to write that genre. But what sets me off nowadays are people like this guy. Right? Now, mind you, the book is not that bad. I actually think certain aspects of it are very good. Very, very good, as a matter of fact. Especially with the middle grade horror thing, because not many people are able to pull that off very well. My biggest irritation with the book is that it's a ripoff of Stephen King's It. I've read the book 2 times now, all the way through. The whole 1,000 pages and something change. I know that book inside and out. Well, from 2 reads. But I know it well enough to know when I see a knockoff, like a straight up just rip-off. The fact that Scholastic published this, it's baffling to me. Now, K.R. Alexander, of course, at this particular moment, as far as I know, he only has like 2 different books actually published. This and another book called The Collector. And I was really stoked to read this book. I didn't care if it was a Stephen King's It ripoff, but the more I read of it, and the certain things that came in, like the social justice politics that came into it. Not heavily, but there are aspects there that are very, very much a political move from Scholastic and from K.R. Alexander, but we'll get there when we talk about this video, or this book. I just kept getting more pissed off the more I read it. It's about a 300-page book, and the book mostly is paced okay, for the most part. It kind of gets a little rushed in the 3rd act, but for the most part, the pacing's okay. The characters are just about as deep as Goosebumps characters, which is fine because it's middle grade. It shouldn't be that deep. I've always complained about Stephen King's writing, and mainly with Stephen King's It, that the books are too long. He puts too much detail in them. They need to be chopped up, edited. They really need to, and they usually don't because he's a moneymaker and people don't care about what he has to say. Publishers at least don't care because he's a guaranteed sell. He guarantees money, period. With this book, I was interested to see what kind of a smaller, chopped-up summary of it would be, especially for younger readers, where you probably wouldn't have blood or killing or anything like that. And it maintains that, by the way, that there's no blood, no killing, anything like that. I don't think it's necessary, so I'm fine with that. My problem comes in with how close of a ripoff this is. How is Scholastic not sued by this point? I mean, really, actually, how are they not sued by this point? I don't see how anyone, even down to the makeup on the book, look at, does this not look like the newest Pennywise? Does it not? Because it does. I mean, even the red lines at the eyes, they're just not connected to the mouth. I mean, it is literally, on the cover, the design is literally a ripoff. You even have the balloon here. There's no balloon in this book. Not anywhere in the book is there a balloon, as far as I remember. It took me like over a week to read this book. And that's usually not the case with books I read on this channel, because I usually fly through Goosebumps books that are about 120 pages. But I literally just did not want to read this half the time. And not because of the ripoff stuff. It's the fact that certain aspects of this book, again, are political. Just plain and simple. They're political. They might not seem like that, but they are. If anybody's familiar with Goosebumps, and particularly the IDW Goosebumps comics that are coming out currently, I think you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. They took something so well done, so special, like Goosebumps, so pure, like Goosebumps, and IDW had to put their social justice warrior politics into that crap. And the stories suck as they are. They just do. I mean, the second book was okay, Download and Die, I think is what it was called, but the first book, Monsters at Midnight, was horrible. It was awful. It's one of the worst books I've ever read from Goosebumps, one of the biggest rants I've ever done on my channel. Without yelling and screaming, but it was one of my old first videos, like probably my first 5 videos I did on the channel. The newest book, Witch's House or whatever, is getting ready to come out too from IDW. The collected 3 issues, volume, whatever you want to call it, trade paperback. It's not a paperback though, it's a hardcover. Anyway, IDW did the same crap that scares me when it comes to the comic industry, number 1, the entertainment industry, number 2, but number 3, in the idea of what will happen to Goosebumps when R.L. Stine dies. If people like that get their hands on those books and on Slappy, what are they going to do with it? Because those IDW comics, they couldn't help but push politics so much. One of the biggest ones you see in the SJW mentality is the gay agenda. They turn characters into just, they're all gay. All of them are always gay. And that's not the problem for me. The problem is the fact that that's all they are as a character. You know, with Goosebumps, you typically have 2-dimensional characters in the regular books, not in IDW comics, which are just bad, but in the regular books, like Not a Living Dummy or Monster Blood. You just have a character just doing stuff. There were no relationships in those books, boyfriend and girlfriend wise, because it wasn't necessary. They didn't do that. Those kids were too young in those stories. The kids reading those books were too young for that. They didn't need that kind of stuff. So they kept it out of there. But IDW doesn't get that because IDW had an agenda. And I'm not saying that this person here, K.R. Alexander, should be held by the same standards that R.L. Stine has set for his books about not having relationships and stuff. I'm not saying that at all. My problem comes in with the fact that, literally, it gets to the point where almost every time 2 different characters in this book that are gay, almost every time that they're talking about how somebody else is cute, or how somebody else, they want to hold their hand, or they're inappropriately, weirdly touching somebody's hair and slicking it back and stuff. Just weird stuff like that, man. Stuff that no other character does in the book, you know? And the characters aren't even likable for that matter. This stinks of what SJWs typically do. And I'm not saying K.R. Alexander's an SJW, but I'm saying Scholastic is clearly pushing the agenda that everybody else is pushing nowadays, with the idea of saying that what SJWs do, for anybody who's not familiar, they take things over, like Marvel Comics or DC Comics, and they grab everything and they pollute it, right? Like Batman, Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the worst victim of all of this stuff when it comes to comic book-based stuff. They take something so wonderful and so classical and American on top of that, and they pollute it every single time with some nonsense, and they just ruin everything. They do it every single time. And they typically take something that's good or well-renowned, or well-known for that matter, and then they pollute it. Or they recreate it and rip it off. That's what they always do. They've always done this. Every time they pop up anywhere in comics or books or movies or anything, you see them just rip off whatever's popular all the time. If this is not the best example of that, I don't know what possibly could be. It's literally Stephen King's It, but taken away from having the flashbacks between adulthood and childhood and the nostalgia factor with that Stephen King captures so well. It gets away from all that. It's focused on just the teens, or the younger kids, like, I would say they're like right at middle school, high school age, somewhere in there. It takes all that and focuses on the idea of them going against a clown, because all of them received this message, like on Halloween, this note in their lockers and stuff to meet at a graveyard. And they did, and they happened to find this little tin that was shaped like a clown and everything. They opened it up, nothing was inside of it. And the 5 different kids are not really friends either. There's 2 of them that are friends, another 2 that are friends, and then one that used to be friends with one of the other girls. And they had a big falling out like the previous year and stuff. So these kids all have to face off against this clown they start seeing after they open this tin on Halloween night. And they start having nightmares, and all these things start happening to them, basically like Stephen King's It. It's to the very T Stephen King's It. There's no getting around it. I think Stephen King should have filed a lawsuit. That's my own opinion. I think if he hasn't yet, he should, because Scholastic deserves it for this crap. I get so sick of seeing social justice warriors do this nonsense, where they take something popular, they give no credit to the people who came before them, or the people they're ripping off in this case. For example, in the author's note at the end of the book, they have the gall. K.R. Alexander has the gall to talk about how somebody else, that was an editor or a friend or whatever, inspired the idea for this book. Look, man. When you rip off the look of Pennywise from the newest movies, and you're in 2019 where It Chapter 2 just came out, when you have something that obvious, just admit it. Just admit that you stole it. just do it. Don't lie about it. Don't sit there and lie to everybody and say that that's not what you did, because you did it. But social justice warriors typically rip everything off and then pollute what they ripped off and try to pretend like it's automatically better. I'm not saying if you think this book is better than Stephen King's It that you're some kind of bad person. The book has a lot of good positive things to it. I think it has some creepier moments, like with the fears of the many kids that are in this book, of the way this clown shapeshifts and stuff. And it's kind of fun at times, to the most part. It's kind of the same feeling I have with Terminator Dark Fate. I didn't hate Dark Fate like everybody else did. I think it has some horrible things in it, just like Star Wars The Last Jedi, right? Some horrible things in it that ruin it. I mean, genuinely make it awful. But I'm a Terminator fan, right? I love Terminator stuff. I love pretty much all the movies for the most part, except for 3. 3 is like the only one I don't love. It's okay. But Dark Fate itself, I loved most of it. I thought the action was fantastic and everything. But then you get the political nonsense that doesn't need to be there. As soon as you start pushing the social justice stuff and ruining previous things that came before you and having no respect for those things, when you start doing that, I lose all respect for you. Now, K.R. Alexander, I haven't read The Collector. I don't know what The Collector is like. I don't know if that's a ripoff of something else. I don't. I hate to be so mean about this stuff. But be honest and admit that you ripped it off. Scholastic, admit that you ripped this off. Stephen King's It is so notorious for the controversial scenes towards the end of it and everything. There's no getting around the fact that you couldn't just pull off, like ripping off Richard Lehman or somebody like that. You couldn't do that. You could have done it and gotten away with it, but something like this, you deserve a lawsuit, period. You do. I hope King comes after all of them. I hope he sues every single one of them. I hope he wins every single one of them. Now, I know the way the copyright laws work, that it needs to be 10% different. So they could probably win this case if King came after them. But I think everybody just in general should stand up and say the fact that this is clearly a social justice pollution of It. And a ripoff of It. Just plain and simple. Doesn't matter if you care about the social justice stuff. If you agree with that stuff, whatever. I don't care. But I'm just saying, at least admit this is a ripoff. That's all I want. That's all I want everybody to be on the same page about. Because it's disgusting. The fact that anybody can get away with this and try to pretend like that's not what they're doing. That's what irritates me more about all of it. Yeah, this is not a good book. For the most part, it's not. Like I said, kind of like with Terminator Dark Fate, I enjoyed a big chunk of it, but there was so much nonsense with the gay characters here that they just kept just being overwhelmingly gay, right? Like, they just, like, I don't care if a character's gay in a book. I don't agree with it. It's whatever, though. I can deal with that. I'm not that sheltered, the fact that I can't deal with that. I've watched a lot of movies and everything where there's gay characters. I don't have a problem with that for the most part. My problem comes in with the fact that that's all the characters are, right? So the straight characters in the book, they have no personality. All you know about them is what they're afraid of. The gay characters are treated the same way, but we're going to pretend that the author's good because the characters are gay, and that somehow makes them stand out, even though both of the gay characters in this book read identically. Just, what is up with talent nowadays? Why does everything suck? Why does the entertainment industry just suck in general? Because of the politics. I mean, it's literally like we're focusing more on having political activists over talented artists. It's happening constantly. I mean, we see it in every facet of entertainment. Whether it be comics, books, movies, anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Television is the worst example of this. There are things that I loved, like Arrow and Flash on the CW, that have been totally ruined by woke politics. I'm tired of seeing it, honestly. I quit both of the shows because of that. But things like this, man, this book had some potential. Even if it is a ripoff, it had potential. And that still pisses me off, the fact that it's a ripoff. There was some potential here, and it's awful. It's just, if you want a really good laugh for just a weird, messed up, ripped off book that could have been good. It could have been good, honestly. Even if you had two-dimensional characters, you could have done something very special here. But it feels to me like a scholastic politics push. That's what it feels like, honestly, and it just irks the crap out of me. Because at least if you're going to do that, make your own property. It's like what people like myself always say about Star Wars and everything else. If you're going to do that, create your own property. Even if it's going to be a ripoff, do your own thing. Don't put it under the brand name, which this didn't do that with Stephen King's It, but it basically did. It tried to. What are your thoughts on K.R. Alexander's The Fear Zone? I was really stoked to read this. I really was, and I'm really thankful that I got a chance to read it because it looked kind of cool. The cover art was good, you know, but I just cannot affirm anything that's going behind this. I don't agree with any of it. I think it's plain out bullshit. I think it's what it is. Yeah. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this book. Have you read this? What did you think about it? Do you like this more than It, or do you like Stephen King's It more? I think for me, I love Stephen King's It, the book, for the most part. I have some problems like with the big controversial thing at the end of that book I don't like. But I definitely prefer that over this, because that feels like a passion project. That feels like something somebody put their heart and soul into. And it really captures the essence of childhood and nostalgia and your friends that you have at that time in your life that you don't have when you're an adult. Whereas this is just a ripoff of the childhood aspect of that. I don't know what to think of it. I don't know. It seems like middle grade horror is just terrible. If it's not independent publishing, then it's usually terrible, from what I could tell. Especially when it comes from, like, Scholastic, which you would think being the publisher of things like Harry Potter, being the big book fair people, being the publisher of Goosebumps, for that matter, you'd think that they would have a whole lot more of quality work behind them, but they don't. They never do. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this, guys? Put your thoughts in comments down below. If I had to rate The Fear Zone on a 5-star basis, with all the problems and nitpicks that I have, and the issue that I have, like I said, mostly, before anything, even before the social justice politics, is the idea of this just being a straight-up ripoff. I mean, it is. It is. And I think that's shameful, because there's so many good ideas out there to write about. And even if you didn't change the creature from a clown to something else, it's shameful, honestly. If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it like a... I don't know. If we're talking about just enjoyability, it's probably a 3 out of 5, honestly. I'll just say that. But when it comes to respecting the creator and respecting the product and respecting Scholastic and all of those things, I'd give it like a 2 out of 5, frankly. It pisses me off to no end. Especially the fact that somebody could take something that's still so notorious to this day, even if they waited till 2020 to release this book, just to not release it in the same year, and basically the same month. I think this came out in October, I'm pretty sure, which was the same month, either that or September was the same month that It Chapter 2 came out. They were trying to cash in on the film. It's what it was. Let's just admit it, honestly. Irks the crap out of me, frankly. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this, guys? Put your thoughts in comments down below. I don't even know if I want to read The Collector after this, because I don't trust it. I think that it's crazy to me the fact that they can get away with this. It's crazy to me the fact that, like with YouTube, right? Anybody that's familiar with any of the problems with YouTube and the adpocalypse and stuff, if you take somebody's video and you do a commentary over top of it, you can get it taken down and have all the demonetization stuff happen to you and everything else. But something like in the book world, this is not applicable at all. You know, this is technically, I guess, relatively fair use, even though it's not really using anything from somebody else's material. But just the straight-up rip-off mentality pisses me off to no end. Anyway, I'm not Stephen King. Stephen King could probably care less, but I'm just saying, I have no respect for things like that. I just don't. But enjoyability-wise, 3 out of 5, like I said, but there's not much there. It's pretty dry. Pretty dry book for 300 pages. And, yeah, I wouldn't say it's special. The cover art's cool. That's about it. No balloon in the book, like I said. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and hearing me ramble and rant. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.